Well, it may be a pile of rubble right now, but the memories of the Garden City Arena complex, the Jack Gatecliff Arena, and Rex Steimers will outlive the buildings. Elizabeth Vlossak of Brock's History Department worked with students to create an online historical archive of the old barns. Lots of great information, videos, you've got some audio interviews as well on that website, Elizabeth.
Yes, it's a fantastic collection that is actually student-led. It was created by a group of students at Brock University.
They threw themselves into this and actually met quite a few people who really held those buildings at, close to their hearts.
Yes, they did. So one of the first projects or parts of the project was that we held this community collecting event where we invited members of the community to come out to the arena to share their stories, their memories, their actual physical memorabilia with the students. And it was really inspiring, and the students were really inspired by these stories.
We've seen a lot of changes in the downtown. Last time I spoke to you was on the occasion of the burning down of the Welland House, and we talked about the importance of that building to the downtown. Where does this one fit in as far as being important?
The Welland House Hotel was, of course, much older than the arena. But it raises these questions about heritage and history and what's meaningful to a community. And our Garden City Arena is 85 years old, or was. Now it is only half of it.
There's some bricks there that are 85 years old.
Some bits and pieces of it, but 85 years, it's a long time, and it's a really important part of our history. If you think about where St. Catharines was in 1938 when it was built, and you think about St. Catharines now in 2023, thinking about that trajectory, that historical journey that the community has been on, that arena really does represent that journey.
I remember it so much as a kid. I mean, I used to take the bus down there to go and see the Falcons games, St. Catharines Blackhawks games. It was just a fabric of my life growing up. I wasn't a hockey player myself, but I went there to watch games.
Certainly a lot of the stories that we collected and the interviews that we conducted, a lot of the stories revolved around hockey, going to hockey games, seeing some of the big hockey heroes, Stan Mikita, Marcel Dion, and also playing hockey in CYO or some of the Junior Falcons. But a lot of the stories also revolved around other events that people attended, learning to figure skate, or going to concerts, or going to fundraising events, lacrosse, roller derby. There were all sorts of sports, but also other cultural activities and events that took place there. And really it created it was a really important hub for the community, and also a really safe space for children to grow up in.
You really look at these buildings, and they're on opposite ends of the downtown when you look at the Welland House and the arenas. The Welland House at its time brought people to the city to stay in that building to enjoy a spa day or a spa weekend. There was a different aspect to the arenas, but people came to that arena for a specific purpose, for events. And now you look at both of those spaces no longer there, it really changes the fabric of a downtown.
It really does. And I think that a lot is going to be lost with the loss of that arena, because even though we have people going down to the Meridian Center, and that part of the downtown core is still full and populated, and people are being driven to that location, but that far end is going to be forgotten. It already has. You can see that over the past 20 years or so, a lot of the businesses that grew out of the arena being in proximity to these businesses disappeared. Places like Tony's Tasty Treats, Bob Patrick's Cycle and Sports.
And you have those itemized on a map, that it's an interactive map, and you can see how businesses grew around the arenas.
Yes, I have a student who was really fascinated by the evolution of the Queenston neighborhood and how it changed over time around the arena. And what she did is, through the interviews that she conducted and the other students had conducted, and she was listening to these different interviews and the places that people were talking about, she then was able to go back to the telephone directories, find the exact address of these locations, and then plot them on a map. And so we have this wonderful interactive map that highlights how important the arena was to local businesses.
Is it the same at the Meridian Center down in the valley? Because it's not as front and center as the Garden City arenas were.
It isn't. I think that because the Meridian Center sits behind St. Paul, it has all of the St. Paul businesses, but it is a very different sort of structure or organization of the city.
What's next for the history department when it comes to archiving St. Catharines history?
Well, I'm hoping that we'll be able to still collect things for the Garden City Arena. The website is still under construction. We still are accepting donations if people have stories they want to share with us, or they have some kind of a memorabilia or photograph that they're willing to scan and send to us. We can add that to the collection. And certainly the Sport Oral History Archive, which I co-direct, is going to be collecting stories of other sporting legacies. One of the collections that we're working on right now is women's hockey, and we're also going to be looking at softball as well.
We have a long-standing relationship with David Sharon at the archives at Brock. Is there some of this athletic history up in those archives?
There is, and we work very closely with David we work very closely with him on this project, and we've been working very closely with him on other projects. It's not, the sport collections are not all located in one place. You have to dig through them, but I think one of the things that I really enjoy about the history of the Garden City Arena, the history of sport, is that it becomes a way into other histories of thinking about the history of class and gender and race and industrialization, urbanization. You can explore all of these themes through the topic of sport. And so when we go into the archive and we go into special collections at Brock, if we look specifically at sport, at rowing or at lacrosse or other sports that developed around in Niagara, you can then start looking at other really important moments in our local history.
It really tells us a lot more than just about what was happening in those arenas. Thanks for joining us today, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much for having me.